write the story of our world every day. Listen and your heart may open up. If ever you feel frightened of our world that's washed away, a mother is a mother, come to us. Women, 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 women. Women sew the fabric of our world every day. History of violence made it through. The stories that we share will all live on, and so we say these truths are our gifts passed on to you.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Liebau, the Scheherazade Project's co-founder with Julia Alvarez, and this is the hashtag 101 Nights show. Back on July 25th, we began our countdown with creativity to Election Day 2020. Now we're less than a month away. We set out to have at least 101 women artists sharing stories in any art form, and with your help, we've grown well beyond that. Our beloved community of artists, art lovers, and activists is gaining momentum. Let's use that energy to engage in democracy. Vote, encourage others to vote, drive someone to the polls, or volunteer to count absentee ballots. Here's another way you can nourish the grassroots. Share your YouTube, IGTV, or Facebook links to your favorite hashtag 101 Nights episodes via social media or messages to friends and family. Tonight's featured artist is Amy Freeman, Development Director at the Writers Center in Bethesda, Maryland. Her bylines include The Washington Post, Huffington Post, and she was named blogher.com's 2017 Voice of the Year for her piece on gender pronouns. The Scheherazade Project's hashtag 101 Nights campaign is pleased to welcome Amy Freeman.
I'm Amy Freeman. I am going to share with you an op-ed that I wrote a couple of months ago after George Floyd's murder and after the Ass Hat in Chief gassed a peaceful protest in Franklin Square for a photo op. And I'm bringing us back in time because the outrages pile so heavily day after day after day that I actually forget. I forget, and I don't want to forget. I don't want to let us forget this particularly horrific time. Okay, so here's the op-ed called, "Are We Really Better Than This?" A middle-aged white mother of three, I live and work in the DC area where a lack of statehood means that it's the only place that the president could send occupying forces with no badge or IDs. This morning, as I continued to read coverage of more accounts of police brutality on protesters, now shunted below the fold by COVID-19 headlines, I plugged, "We're better than this," into a search engine. In a quarter of a second, my screen filled with headlines from Pennsylvania, Georgia, Kentucky, Washington State, quoting politicians, sports figures, and clerics saying those same words. But are we? Really? Black people have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, dying nationwide at twice the rate of white people. Social scientists attribute this disparity to Black Americans having less access to healthcare, worse diets, poorer health, and lower income jobs that must be performed in person rather than remotely. Yet despite Republicans starting to change their tunes, the president and his family decry the use of masks and refuse to social distance with absurd and dangerous gatherings slated for 4th of July weekend. Last month, we saw him ignore his own experts and exhort states where COVID-19 galloped through vulnerable populations to abandon their lockdowns. Then we saw his supporters at restaurants, beaches, bars, unmasked and packed together. We saw storekeepers proudly refusing entry to anyone who does wear a mask. And now we see the rampaging suffering their actions wrought. With that as our background, let us not lose sight of the videotaped murder and widespread protests lifting the message that Black lives matter. Our government's response escalated beyond appalling. On June 1st, federal police launched munitions against peaceful protesters outside the White House so that the president could stage a farcical co-op. The next day, MSNBC's KZ Hunt asked GOP senators on their way to lunch to comment on the attack. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican, Wisconsin, didn't see it. Senator Mitt Romney, Republican, Utah, didn't watch it closely enough to know. Both Senators Mike Enzi, Republican, Wyoming, and Rob Portman, Republican, Ohio, were too late for lunch to speak on it. None said, I don't know the facts, but I'm gathering them. And if the president attacked peaceful protesters, I'll demand justice. None said, ordering troops to attack a peaceful protest is a constitutional violation and a crime. Or even, these are serious allegations. I'm looking into them soon. I may even skip dessert. We all saw George Floyd brutally murdered while immobilized and begging for his life. We all heard Amy Cooper making sure 911 knew she was scared of an African-American man, using his skin color to underline her fear, obviously aware that police react more swiftly if the threat called in involves a black man. We read about the no-knock warrant that led to Breonna Taylor's murder, and police in New York City pulling up the mask of a black man who had his hands up to pepper spray his face, and a black man shot in a Wendy's parking lot, and. Democratic legislators were on the move, yet Republicans' calls for police reform or even investigation were flaccid, and the executive order a joke, undermined by the dog whistle tweets of the commander-in-chief. Because in white America, we can watch the murder of black people by white officers, watch it over and over and over, and reassure ourselves that it doesn't have anything to do with us. It's not just that these horrors have happened throughout our history, they are our history. They're the norm, not the exception. We are wrong to say we're better than this when our past and present make it abundantly clear that we are not. But this week's eruption of protests in all 50 states, in big cities and small towns, and the images of people of every color kneeling with their hands up before walls of police dressed like stormtroopers suggest that maybe, just maybe, we could be. On November 3rd, we'll find out whether we, as a country, truly are. Please vote.
Thank you to our featured artists and to you for joining the Scheherazade Project's hashtag 101 Nights. We're fast approaching Election Day and we need all of us to draw attention to it. Please add your voice by posting a photo or video of your story, poem, dance, tapestry, painting, song, any art you wish to share on your Twitter or Instagram account, and include hashtag 101 NIGHTS. In the meantime, if voter registration deadlines haven't yet passed in your state, volunteer to register voters. And of course, go vote, everyone.
So the fabric of our world every day, history of violence made it through. The stories that we share will live on until we say these truths are our gifts passed on to you.